Good, okay. So, good afternoon and welcome to our on-site and online participants to this seminar. The theme of the seminar is supporting epistemic agency in collaborative knowledge building, a continued journey. In fact, Professor Chen has been in this area of doing work on knowledge building for probably at least 15 years. So for more than half his life, he's been doing knowledge building. Right. And in fact, I mean, of course, for those of us in education, we talk about learning. But in fact, learning can be more than just learning from other people or from other experiences, but actually building new knowledge. And Bodong will be sharing with us his journeys in knowledge building, which is will be very inspiring. Professor Bodong CHEN is an associate professor in learning sciences and technologies at the University of Pennsylvania, the Graduate School of Education, where he directs the Penn Graduate School of Education Wonder Lab and the Penn Knowledge Building Innovation Network. His research is at the intersection of learning sciences, learning analytics, and network science. And he sits on the editorial boards of a number of journals, including the National Journal of Computer Supported Collaborative Learning and the Internet and Higher Education, and served in the Society for Learning Analytics Research, SOLA Executive Committee, and the Computer Supported Collaborative Learning Committee of the International Society of Learning Sciences. So, without further ado, may I invite all of you to join me in welcoming Professor CHEN.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Is this on? All right. I think it's on. Thank you everyone for being here. And I take the responsibility for being late because my baggage was late. I'm migrating to Hong Kong. So I think that I took that type of traveling to this seminar as well. So thank you for being patient as we're trying to come back from the restaurant. So it's really it's a pleasure to be here. First of all, thank you, Professor Wall, for inviting me to spend time with this wonderful group of scholars and researchers, practitioners, innovators, Hong Kong U, in this site center, which is doing a lot of cool work. And I'm talking a little bit about my personal journey that has been going on for 15 years, which is supporting humans to have more epistemic agency in their learning journeys. And if I can advance the slide. Okay, yeah. So some background which Nancy already shared about. And as for my lab, we focus on how to better support human wonderment. That's how we named the lab as Wonder Lab. Is humans are wondering about the phenomenon around us, wondering about new possibilities. So how can we support humans to do that with support from other humans and also technologies and also infrastructures? So that's kind of the core focus of my scholarship. And I just want to quickly introduce my different lines of research because today's talk will be focused on one particular area, which is called knowledge building, because we like triangles so much. So I put a triangle to demonstrate different areas of my work. First is knowledge building, which is a pedagogical model that tries to position students as knowledge builders and knowledge creators. So they're creating knowledge in the process of understanding the world. And there's a lot of work around this pedagogy for decades. This is not kidding, but it was before I was born. Knowledge building work has already started. In this area, I did a lot of different projects focusing on promise and ideas, meta discourse, new literacy. There's another project that we're not going to talk about, which is focused on data literacy in the process of building knowledge. And the second line of work, which I think overlaps a lot with your interest here, is on learning analytics. In this area, I think about different ways to analyze learning processes using computational methods and I try to focus on temporal aspects, social aspects, and multidimensional complex aspects of learning, doing some guest editing for the Journal of Learning Analytics for a few times. And the second part, I think I'm really inspired by the work here is focused on the design and implementation, because the computational research and analysis can have more potential and more impact if we build them into tools and if the tools are used by our practitioners in the classroom. So I have some work in that area as well, try to implement different technologies that are inspired by the first bucket of work that's focused on analysis, so that we can make impact in the real world settings. And the third triangle, part of the triangle is something more general, which is try to think about digital transformation in education and try to use different technologies, including social tools, inquiry-based works on MOOCs as well, and more recently think about educational infrastructures that are enabling a lot of changes we see, transforming schools and the classroom into different types of organizations, which necessitates a different set of thinking, as you mentioned, ecological view of systems in education. I think that's aligned with that approach and talk about that as well. So that's the broad overview of my interests. But for today, we only have maybe 35 or 40 minutes. I will focus on a very small subset of studies, which are all connected with the idea of epistemic agency. And it's also very benefit to myself because it's only the first time I'm trying to connect those studies across multiple years for myself. So it's a time for me to reflect on the journey myself and to look forward as well. Because we're at this interesting historical moment of AI. So I think that has, we are in the moment of thinking a lot about epistemic agency because of AI as well. So the studies are, they're called promises, judgments, crisscrossing ID landscapes, and collaborating with generative AI. And I'll try to wrap up with some general reflection on how learning analytics and AI can be connected with epistemic agency as well. So this work is situated in this, what I call, and what other people talk about, the society is always changing. It's changing in many different ways. The first one is the society is changing. There's increasing number of complex problems, but the shortage of solutions, right? This is what the Canadian author Homer Dixon wrote a long time ago about this ingenuity gap that talks about the supply of solutions is not meeting the demands for solving those problems. And this is to say, for example, climate change, global warming, and poverty issues, and so on. We need all kinds of solutions, but we don't have enough supply, which needs new ideas, new creations that should be created to solve those problems. In the same time, the society is changing in terms of this diagram I'm trying to show this what I call the JAG technological frontier, and this is in response to the recent rise of AI, which tries to describe, as we're trying to invent new solutions for problems, the technology is always pushing in terms of what they are capable of, right? The technology is capable of different kind of tasks, and AI is pushing the frontier forward in terms of covering all the human work. In the same time, as you see, some of the tasks are still outside of the frontier of AI, which means the AI is good at some tasks, it's getting better at some tasks, but still there are a lot of tasks we're good at as humans. AI is not capable of doing at all. So this is another angle to think about. The technological frontier is always shifting as we're trying to develop solutions for the society. And because the frontier is shifting, there's a lot of different balancing or distribution of labor. This graph is from McKinsey, I think from last year, trying to show how much of the automation, especially supported by generative AI, is pushing different professions to automate their tasks. And we see a lot of movement to the right means a good percentage of different labors and tasks are automated away by AI, which means humans are not involved in doing these tasks as we move forward. In the same time, this is from an older report that demonstrated top skills, which is already, top skills for 2025, which is next year. And I think this predictions are pretty accurate, but this needs to be updated, maybe adding the prompt engineering to the task to the skill as well. But the top skills at that time was, analytical thinking, innovation, active learning, early strategies, complex problem solving. Right, this is in the backdrop of having a lot of automation and technology innovation going on, which are requiring us to think about what's the future of work, what kind of skills are needed, and those are the most important skills we need as well. In the meantime, there are also discussion about what people call epistemic crises. This is more societal phenomenon in terms of, this particular diagram shows our attention, our engagement with each other, and our ability to make sense of information is often hijacked by technological design, right? How often can we control our attention if we're close or nearby our smartphone or near our social media? And how much the social media applications could fundamentally constrain our access to different types of information. So actually a lot of sociologists, technologists are debating or discussing about this epistemic crisis, which is, as a society, we can sometimes have a very difficult time to make sense of the phenomenon, right? Because we come from the different kinds of informational ecologies, which are shaped by technological designs. And we can hardly agree on many different kinds of ideas anymore, maybe compared to the decades ago. So this, again, is a very important part of our challenge facing today, and that's why I think it's important to talk about epistemic agency, because at different studies, whether it's about solving those large problems, or it's about trying to survive in a very tough, workforce transformation, or to be a part of be a citizen in a society, right? Trying to be part of the society or make sense of the debates going on in our public, right? So we need to think about how we have agency in terms of knowing something, right? Epistemic agency basically defined as the agency to know and an agency to defend your knowledge and to make decisions in the process of developing your own understanding about the world. So it's important, I think, because of this background to talk about epistemic agency, but to give you a bit more accurate maybe definition is epistemic agents to me, this resonates with me as the definition is epistemic agents should think of themselves and act as legislating members of the realm of epistemic ends. They make the rules, devise the methods, and set the standard that bind it. So the standards and the process of knowing is not set by other people, but set by the people who are epistemic agents. And to me, that's a very important part of being a citizen, being a student, being a teacher, right? In all kinds of settings, we want to promote the agency of individuals to act in those ways. So, and another lens, as I think about epistemic agency is, as I mentioned earlier, I develop technology, I build tools. Another way to think about this is what I call, citing other people, is this kind of idea of intelligence augmentation. Because we talked a lot about AI recently, but to me, we should think about not only the technology, right? We should think more about how we use technology, how we configure specific human technology partnerships so that humans are empowered to accomplish certain tasks. And this is especially important when we talk about epistemic agency, because to me, if I want to promote epistemic agency, I want to design systems, right? And this is from a famous report from Douglas Engelbart a long time ago, arguing that we should think about not human, but human plus language, artifact, methodology, and training. And in order to support human, we should support the system around human so that human can operate in the best way to achieve their goals, right? So this is basically describing what is intelligence augmentation. And to me, in order to enhance humans' agency, we need to kind of think about this augmentation process and try to design a system for learning so that the agency of humans can be augmented instead of being minimized in those technologies. So that's enough background, I think, for those different kinds of ideas. But even more background, as Nancy mentioned, I've been working on this idea of knowledge building for a long time, and this is largely the context of this talk is as I explore different ways to enhance the agency of students. It's in this context of knowledge building classrooms. And knowledge building classroom or knowledge building community as a model of learning was created by two professors I worked with when I was doing my doctoral work. Runme, writer, they're both from the University of Toronto. And this model is try to refashion education in a fundamental way so that it becomes a coherent effort to initiate students into a knowledge-creating culture, right? Which basically, as I mentioned earlier, turns students into agents who think about themselves as being able to create knowledge as they participate in the classroom or as they participate in society. So I've been working on this for a long time, and those are the ways I came up with to explain this model to the different community. What I emphasize here is knowledge building has different kind of foundations. It's based on a lot of research in the 70s on creative expertise. It's based on thinking about ideas as authentic, real objects and artifacts. It's also based on thinking about knowledge communities. So instead of thinking about individual learning, think about learning in communities as well. And also, those ideas get translated to different design principles. Principles such as students need to work with real ideas, authentic problems, or students need to engage in knowledge-building discourse to improve their understanding. So there's a set of principles that were created, and those principles are used to guide the design of tools and the design of pedagogical support in the classroom. So that, as we try to introduce knowledge-building into the classroom, we try to translate those principles and use them to ground the activity in the classroom as well. And knowledge building has a pretty widely used technology that's called knowledge form, and it was created before I was born. I know that. And it has its I think the story I heard is it was invented before Apple One, like laptop, right?
Yes, it was a wide area network within a classroom setting. There was no internet.
Right. Yeah. Before the internet. It managed to evolve over the years, especially to maintain the philosophy behind it, right? What is a knowledge-building environment? Basically, it try to still maintain the key ideas of knowledge-building environment into the features of the technology, but it's basically a discussion space. People come and post what we see here, different kind of squares or different posts, and those are connected through those replies, and those arrows means how different posts are replying to each other. And we use the term Bodong because, as you see, there is a Bodong because the reply in knowledge form means you're committed to this idea so that you won't build on it, versus replying just to be nice or to make friends. So that's the key again. Small different tastes of this decisions people make as they design the software, which has a huge implication on how students are approaching this environment. Right. What you saw here, this is the interface I implemented with my team a few years ago, which is maybe a little more modern than the older one. But we'll still try to improve it as we work on different projects. And this is the content of the post. Basically, it has a title, has authors, has the content within it, and people can build on it. But if you want to know more about this, there are a lot of online tutorials that we have created as well to explain how to use it. So again, I think I already maybe run out of time a little bit, so I need to maybe give you a quick overview of a few studies so that we can save time for some discussions. So for today, as I mentioned, it's a quick overview of a few studies. And Nancy told me that I should focus on design. So I will really not talk too much about the empirical analysis or the findings that we analyze using different sources of data in those projects. So the first study, right, connected with extended agency is what we call promiseless judgments. And this is based on, even though the term, when I was talking about this study at different conferences, people always ask me, why do you choose such a hard word, promise and promiseless. But it's really not that fancy. It just means that as somebody who is an extended agent, you want to determine or decide what's worth pursuing in your next step. For example, if you're a graduate student, what's your thesis topic, right? You're trying to make a decision on what's the most promising direction for your own research. That promises judgment. And sometimes when I was a graduate student, I might look up to my advisor and ask her to choose for me. Or in that way, I'm giving up my extended agency if I do that. So the purpose of this study is really trying to ask, right, because the promises and judgment is an important part of creative processes, it's an essential part of expertise, and how can we engage students to do that, even if they are young, even if we think they don't have enough knowledge, even if we don't think they are cognitively mature to do that. So it's trying to kind of fight against that assumption that students cannot do it. There's a lot of literature behind it. For example, the author of Creativity and Flow, Sixten Mihai, wrote about, the ability to separate bad idea from good ones is very important for creative individuals. And also there's writing about being creative or being a creative expert. A big part of that is recognize promise and promiseless or promising ideas in their work. So there's a lot of discussion from the literature about how important it is for creativity, but very little support for students to do it. So again, the design of the study is try to implement particular design and then try to see whether grade 3 students can even do it. I think this was conducted in the context in Canada. Where grade 3 students, they're maybe 8 or 9 years old, so very young students. And in order to support them to do this, we designed a tool, or actually I coded this tool myself. That's called Promise Ideas Tool, to support this process of finding promise ideas in knowledge form. And also we designed a pedagogical strategy or a specific pedagogical intervention that involves students in this kind of iterative process of making judgments as a collective. So they're not only making judgment for themselves, but making judgment for the whole class. They're making choices. As they finish their judgments, they choose a certain number of ideas, and then they start a new cycle of knowledge building or theory building, right? So that's a design we came up with. And this is to give you some basic description of how this looks like. This is the interface we used at that time. And the tool allows the student, for example, go to different posts and select a piece of text as promising ideas, right? And this is, you see the student wrote, I think that worms feel heat and then light as heat and dark doesn't. They're trying to explain how worms could navigate the world, right? By going into the soil, right? They feel it's warm or sunny outside, they want to hide in the soil. So the students try to find the promising idea that represents the best idea of their community so that they can make advancement from what they know at that point. And the technology here allows them to click on the button, choose the color, and select a piece of text to represent the promising idea. And if everybody does that, we will have a list of different ideas, and those are ranked based on the number of fits each idea has. Like sometimes multiple students can choose the same idea to be promising. So this is more of kind of crowdsourcing mechanism for students to find the most promising idea in their community, and then the student can choose a set of ideas after a discussion, and then export them to a new space so that they can continue their knowledge building in a fresh workspace without a quote unquote, disruption from less promising ideas. Right. So that's the technological design. It's very simple at that time. It's just one way for students to select ideas, move them to a new space so that they can move forward with a new set of ideas. And in this study, right, we get students to talk about what is promising ideas, and this is part of the pedagogical intervention because we don't just assume students know it. Especially students so young, we want to talk with them. What do you understand what is promising ideas? And how can we think about this idea? How can we think about this concept of promising ideas? And initially, students thought the correct ideas are promising ideas. Initially they talk about, these are the constructs we coded from their responses. Basically, they think ideas is correct, right? Being promised is right. And then the teacher had a lot of conversation with the student to kind of gradually guide them to think about maybe promising idea doesn't mean the idea is not correct now, but it has what we call high probability of being right, or has potential to grow into something bigger, right? Has potential to solve a challenge they have. So students, even though they're young, they're able to kind of move from being factual when we think about promising idea to thinking about the probability or whether it's worth to spend time on those ideas and so on, which I think is more aligned with promise and judgment by experts. Because if you think about those low-level artists, as they're working at the frontier of their field, they are not sure what is the right idea, but they are better at finding what is promising ideas. That's why they win the Nobel Prize, right? So students, I think, were able to kind of demonstrate the growth in that area. And we did a lot of analysis as well, because we involved them to use the tool, and then they use the tool in a way to support their collaboration. So again, I'm going to really quickly move through those results. Their collaboration become more densely connected, more interaction, and their collaboration involves posting initial idea, grabbing promising ideas, and then continue to work on those ideas. Or they find an idea that was proposed by another student and try to work on the idea to improve it. And sometimes students, however, feel they just keep picking what's a promising idea, but they never work on it. That's not good either. Even though their practice is not, they're not committed to those ideas. So a lot of qualitative findings, they're all in the paper that was published from the Journal of the Computer Supported Collaborator. And also we evaluated how much progress they made in terms of understanding using this construct of scientificness. We coded their ideas, and the experimental class improved more because they are the group that used the tool and went through this intervention in comparison with the baseline group. So that's again some empirical findings I will not spend time to talk about. So key takeaways. With proper support, younger students, even if they are 8 or 9 years old, they can develop this intuitive understanding of promisingness and then use it to improve and support their knowledge building effort. And by doing so, they can this can facilitate their community dialogues and can help them make more improvement on their knowledge based on our analysis. Okay. So again, this is one aspect of epistemic agency in terms of selecting the most promising idea you want to work on, but that's not everything. The second project I want to talk about is in a different context. And the first one was picking the most promising idea. The second one is imagine you're trying to develop your understanding about a topic, but you face a very complex set of ideas, and some of the ideas are coming from your peers, some of them are coming from the public discussion. For example, right, we're talking about saving energy. One interesting thing that I noticed this time living in Hong Kong is if you go to a restaurant, you will not get tissues. or napkins, because that's the intentional effort to reduce waste, right? So those are the public discussion going on, which is always happening around us. So for students, if they're doing an inquiry project on those topics, they always face those diverse set of ideas. How can they navigate the idea landscape and then do something that can benefit their learning, can be meaningful for their own action taking or decision making, right? So this project is about asking this question: are students able to navigate complex idea landscape with reading knowledge for public good? And this project was based on was situated in a school, a public school in the U.S. In particular, Minneapolis Public Schools was funded by the National Science Foundation. And as I mentioned, at that time, when we were doing this project in the U.S., there's a very large debate or dialogue about the Green New Deal. Right? It attracted a lot of attention. The students were talking about it as well. But for us, it's how can we engage students to talk about this in their classroom in a way that resonates complexity or reflects complexity, reflects nuance in thinking and sense making, and also allow them to build knowledge on this topic. Right. This is a school. This is a school building that this work took place, and it was run in a long-term partnership I had with the school, with the group of science teachers in the school. And I go to the classroom, the student, the teacher use different kind of technology to support knowledge building, including the wall, right? That's you see on the wall. There's all kinds of sticky notes the teacher put on the wall to sustain the discussion among students. And this is as you can see, it's a science class. There's some kind of lab equipment for science experiments or lab experiments. And what you don't notice here is there's also eco farm that's going on in the class. And those are the different kind of system and structure we put in the class to support knowledge. And this is a closer look at the indoor farm that the student put together. Putting all the knowledge they have, such as what kind of light support light growth, and how to put the LED together, right? How to design the colors of LED so it looks nice. Right? Those are all the knowledge the student have, and then we all try to localize their knowledge to give the space for both the plans and also for the learning, because actually talk about the different phenomena in the indoor farm as they do this indoor farm. So anyway, that's the kind of the context of the study. But for the particular study, it was focused on engaging students to grapple with complex issues and to be part of the public dialogues happening in the US. And to do this, we have two different kind of components of design. The first one is a technological tool that we call idea magnets. I will show you later the interface. And the pedagogical design is a bit similar to the first one, but also different because we engage the students in this classroom, spend a lot of time to identify problems. So we call it problem finding around those big issues, such as the Green New Deal. And from the problem to identify, we try to then center their sense making of some public dialogues, public debates on those issues, and then use those public use the sense making effort of students to build theories so that students can understand those issues more. So I think mapping tool is very, again, pretty simple. It has different components. The first one, this is the annotation tool that we use. A student can go to a public website or any website and then annotate a piece of text from that website into this kind of online system, so that the annotation will include what is annotated and also what the student posts in response to the text that is annotated. And what's important for our project is whatever the student annotate will be automatically connected with their knowledge forum database as well, right? So it's not only annotating with the purpose, but what you see here is on the panel of ID magnets, there will be an aggregated list of annotations with a way to kind of filter this list using tags, using search. So the student, as they annotate, have this evolving database of ideas from public sources. So the student can then drag and drop different annotations into the knowledge from a post by easily dragging and dropping from the sidebar to the content of the post so that they can continue their knowledge building discussion. So that's the technological design, is to kind of bridge what we call more private classroom space of discussion with the public discussion through annotation and through idea magnets too. And with this, we work with the teacher. This is a more elaborate design. We went back and forth, but again, a lot of effort, a lot of insight from the teacher. This map is created by the teacher, but those are the three. Sorry for the bullet points. Those are the three different major phases or components of the student's activity that we report, including finding problems, sense making of public discourse, and building theories about those issues. So with that, again, we went to kind of design and try to implement it in the classroom. We went through two different phases. Phase one in the physical science unit on energy, and phase two on chemistry about emissions. And the students were all kind of trying to dive deep into this topic, but also finding those relevant public issues that the society was debating, and try to go through the cycles I mentioned. I'm going to move quickly. This is just one example of how they went through this. Using an example from Green New Deal. For example, here, what's interesting is from the same topic of Green New Deal, students identify a lot of interesting problems. Some of them are about economics, like what is a good job, for example, and how much money would the deal cost, which are a very important part of this debate. And some are more scientific issues, such as why is climate change dangerous, or how does it happen, right? So it's not only limited to the science topic, but covers all kinds of areas. And then they said a lot of public sources, some of them are selected by the teacher, and in the same time, the students were, they found a bunch of sources themselves as well. And they came back to the knowledge from their theories. Right? This is to show this process is very messy, even though it looks like linear, but it's still jump around different kind of areas. Again, we did a lot of analysis around this question: are students able to navigate the complex idea landscape in order to achieve this? So I will not dive deeper into those results, but those are the data sources we use, and we analyze both qualitative data and quantitative data. And we'll also try to compare different phases. And there's a basic overview of the data sources, basically coming from the web annotations students make and the knowledge from those, and in two different phases. And you see that phase two is more active. And that's when students become more comfortable with the technology, and they feel more empowered and more willing to share their thoughts on this topic. Right? Again, a very high level overview of this is one way to show on the y-axis, every line is a student. On the x-axis is the time, right? As this unit moves forward, students participate in discussion at a different time, and then the green dot means the knowledge from post, and then the purple looks like purple or I don't know what's maybe purple. It is annotation student made of a public discourse. And there's a lot of connection. Those are beyond connections, means students are reading on each other through activity. It's pretty hard to see on that screen, but this is one way to show is they're trying to build on each other's ideas, and they're in the process of doing that, they're citing those public sources as they're building on each other as well. We did a lot of analysis that's more qualitative, focused on their spontaneous epistemic thinking. And one major finding was as students were trying to make sense of the public sources, initially, there very little evidence of their epistemic thinking, But in the phase two, as they move forward, they express more epistemic curiosity and surprise as they're engaging with public sources. So that means they have more kind of willingness to express how they're reacting to the sources as they move to the second phase. And in terms of the theory viewing loops, again, I will not spend too much time to explain this, but phase two, as they move forward, they try to sustain their discussion more than their phase one. Because phase one, they're more just talking about different questions they had, or trying to propose some explanation, but those explanations are not the same to move to become a better explanation. Also coded their rhetorical references whenever they're incorporating public sources. Phase two again shows more diversity in terms of how deeply they're using these public sources as they're building their knowledge. And there's a lot of qualitative examples as well. I will speak that just for the sake of time. And we also coded their, what we call consequentiality of learning, because as we engage students to think about those ideas and those public issues, what we call consequentiality, that means that learning means something for them. That means they can leverage what they learn to take action, or to change the way they view the world, or view themselves. That's the consequentiality of learning. And based on our analysis of their posts and also their portfolio, there are different ways or different indication of consequentiality of learning, such as the relate learning to themselves. They show care for people, community, and society. They also critique the society, and then they look for actions that are important and kind of build on their theory. Right? Again, there's a lot of examples to show that as well. But the key takeaway is, right, we want to support students to have more epistemic agency, especially when they face a complex information landscape. And in this small intervention, we saw students have growing epistemic thinking as they engage with public sources. They have more sophisticated rhetorical references to the sources. They also use them to advance their theory. And also we use this opportunity to reason about scientific issue or substantial issue, and also demonstrate different indicators of consequentiality learning. So again, those are again one aspect of epistemic to think of, right? This is a third study. This study was contextualized. It took place after ChatGPT came out. So it's more recent, but it's very different than the first two. It's more of, I think, a reaction to what happened at that time, because ChatGPT came out and people were panicking, especially educators were panicking. What if students use it to cheat? How can we make sure students are learning instead of just using it as shortcuts? So at that time, we're very interested in this idea. Can we use AI to empower students epistemic agency by allowing them to think about the collaborative relationship they can form with AI? Right? So that's the background of this study. And the study was in collaboration with my student, Chen, who recently graduated. And will become an assistant professor at UIUC this fall, so I'm pretty proud of her. And also as a teacher from Bogota, Colombia, whose name is Fernando Castillo. And she has been a long time collaborator with me as well, very innovative as a teacher. And the study has three different goals. As I mentioned, we want to augment students' creative work with AI, with ChatGPT. We want to facilitate student AI literacy. We also want to seek to design, at that time, how this knowledge-building environment can be different with AI. Because historically, we have a set of software features that are important for knowledge-building, but how can we introduce AI to the software to even further improve it to support knowledge-building? And the context was in the high school context, when the students were talking about religions. And only 10 students I think my class has 24 students, only 10 students consented to participate. But the students, they were all expected to kind of explore what is a religion, what defines a religion, what are the religions, so that they develop religious literacy in the process. From us, again, following Nancy's prompt, I want to talk more about design, right? For us is, we want to design this intervention, and in this case, we collaborated with the teacher to co-design what this could look like in terms of using ChatGPT to support student knowledge computing. And one important decision we made was to not just using this AI generically, right? Just we're not interested in asking students to ask questions and then answer the question. Instead, we want to prompt ChatGPT to act as kind of different kinds of collaborators, right? In knowledge and literature, there's a framework that's called knowledge creating dialogue loops. Because in knowledge creating process, you can make those loops such as you define a problem, you propose a new idea, and something that is interesting or familiar to you already. You know, we value promises in knowledge creating loops as well, and we have a critical discussion, we identify high-level ideas. So those are the loops that are important for knowledge creating. For us is how can we come up with design patterns to engage students to think about those loops as they work with AI, right? So we came up with different kind of design patterns, and what we see here is kind of pointer is not working. What we see here is we put those loops on the y-axis or vertical line, and we have student and ChatGPT as two actors who are interacting with each other in a specific scenario. For example, on the left, you see the first initial step, which is coded as 1, is involving ChatGPT to come up with new ideas. That's the initial point. And then the number 1 goes to number 2, and then number 2 is where students are responsible to have a critical look at the idea that AI came up with. And then goes to 3, which is comparison, where students is responsible to compare different ideas, and goes to number 4, which is on the top, right, to define the problems and so on. So using this more detailed design, this actually comes from the human-computer interaction tradition, XDI. The argument of doing this more detailed process model is to be clear who is doing what at which time and how the interaction actually looks like. And for us, this is important because we don't want to genetically ask students to use AI. Instead, we want to carefully configure their collaboration. So student and AI are doing different things, and students are aware of that collaboration themselves. So this is a very general description of the design we came up with. And those are more detailed prompts. The teacher played a very important role to come up with the prompt. The first prompt on the left is where student used ChatGPT to write an essay, and the student was responsible to critiquing it, right? To criticizing the idea in the essay, so that the students are learning something from the essay, but not believing everything in the essay. And the second prompt is something that could be done with the teacher. When the student asks the ChatGPT a question, ChatGPT come up with multiple responses at a time, right? You can see more details here is try to highlight some disagreement and different points of view and try to ask the student a question as a follow-up instead of providing a very non-elaborate response to the student. So that the reason of doing that is we worry that every time when AI sounds very elaborate, very knowledgeable, very eloquent, the student become the field is empowered, right? Because of the way they interact with ChatGPT. So that's a different kind of problem we can come up with. The question we were asking, or we're interested in asking, was in which way is student use it? And also, did they improve their AI literacy as they use AI, because we think using AI is a means to an end versus an end in itself, right? So again, quickly, we analyze different kinds of data sources, mostly focused on their interviews with the students, and also analyzing what they created knowledge from, and another tool called Neuro. I will quickly just go through some results. Students use ChatGPT in many different ways. They actually use it as an information source, right? Compared to the second study, the students were interacting with public websites. And this one, they're using ChatGPT as an information source. I think that's pretty common these days. Is students use it as a search engine. Or we use it, I actually use it as a search engine myself when I have issues with Python coding. So it's kind of coming into our informational ecology, right? That's kind of going on. That's a very typical use of AI, is to search information. And use it for some basic tasks, such as checking grammar. Also, they use it to have more inspirations, to generate ideas, and to promote collaboration. But those are the high-level usefulness of ChatGPT. And then when you're using it, I just highlight that some students will try to impose some limits in terms of when they use it and how they use it. And they did a lot of fact checking in terms of what they get out of ChatGPT. In that case, the students were talking, and they didn't find that the AI made the learning easier. They found that because they need to do an extra step of fact checking, it becomes harder. So they were actually complaining about it, because otherwise you could just do it in an easier way without using it. So that's a very interesting way to think about it. Is, can we use AI to make learning even harder, or even more challenging versus easier? That's actually from the student side. And the student AI literacy, they all kind of recognize ChatGPT as AI technology, but they have a very basic understanding of how it works. There's a broad literature of AI literacy that I will not dive into, but one part of this is understanding how AI works. But in this case, the student didn't have a very advanced understanding, but instead, they were able to leverage their basic understanding to use it and to gradually improve their understanding, which I think that's an important part of how to learn AI. Is not to learn the technicality of AI, in a siloed way, but instead is to build those different kind of opportunities for students to use it and reflect on their process of using it and refining their understanding gradually. Because having limited understanding is not the bottleneck for the student in our study, because they use it in a way that's responsible and meaningful, even if they didn't have a very strong understanding. They again had a lot of discussion about the strength and weaknesses. I will not talk more about it, but if you're interested, you can check out our paper. And they reflect on the risks and relationship with ChatGPT. I think this is something I found very promising, because we were intentional in the beginning about the design patterns of their interaction. So they become increasingly aware, or very aware, that AI has all kinds of limitations. So they want to be careful as they use it. So they don't want to trust it fully. But some students, even though they were critical, but they trust fully, which we couldn't understand why. That's why we need another study to follow up on this. So some key takeaway is student understanding and AI development AI literacy developed independently. And they use ChatGPT to make learning harder instead of easier, because they were engaging with AI mindfully. Right? That mindful engagement is key, because if you use it mindlessly, it makes learning easier. But if you're using it mindfully and ethically, it makes learning harder for them. They take responsibility in the process, because we condition them to make key decisions through that design patterns we come up with. And the teacher was very important. As the teacher both was willing to learn this tool, and also was willing to experiment with
different kind of prompting to guide students to use ChatGPT. So this is a table that's trying to summarize all three studies, right? They're all trying to explore epistemic from different angles. The students were using different kind of information sources, different kind of technological support was put in place, and different pedagogical support we come up with to guide them. But they're all interested in, as we have different kind of socio-technical contexts, how can we enhance epistemic agency of students? I think this is again a continued journey for myself, because I started this line of work a long time ago, and now I'm trying to design new tools with my team to do this more. But some reflection, I think. I didn't talk about learning analytics in this talk, but I think it's important to reflect on that as well. Is as we develop in designing learning analytics, how do we think about agency? How do we think about decision making by humans? And I actually wrote a paper with Professor Zhang for the Journal of Learning Analytics. We talked about that particular issue a long time ago. And so the question I just posed here, I will not try to answer that because it might be impossible in another talk. But how do we retain human agency as we design and implement learning analytics? It could be the teacher's agency, it could be the student's agency. How can we balance different kind of goals of having analytic tools? What kind of design trade-off are necessary to both retain human agency and achieve those goals? And how can we move towards more integrated process-oriented analytics as well? Because sometimes different analytics are looking at learning in different angles, sometimes at the cost of processes that are not considered in analytics. We'll always make those decisions, sometimes hard decisions. On the right side, for myself, I think it's important to, in my project, to kind of think about how to design the right thing and design things right. That's from the more famous design framework. I have different kind of toolkits for that. One is to co-design with users, and also to use this technique called the value synthesis design, so that when we design and we make decisions, we are aware of different values that are embedded in design decisions. And recently, I encountered this idea, which I think I want to hear your thoughts. Is in the programming world, they're talking about there's one very interesting person who proposed, was Maggie Appleton, who works for an AI company, who recently proposed this idea of barefoot developer. Well, for the AI, developer in the AI world, which I resonated with me, was inspired by the Chinese context, barefoot doctors. Of course, a lot of pronunciation behind the term. But I like this idea of a barefoot analytic developer. That means somebody like a teacher who gets really quick set of training, can they develop their tools themselves? Can we develop infrastructure so that the teacher can become a developer with specific training that can be fast, can be simple, especially if we have AI system to support that, right? This is in the context of now we can chat with our data, we can chat with anything, or and their interface of AI applications, I think is quickly evolving. We will not only have chat interface, and many other functions that we can use. So can we think about a future where the teachers can become developers of learning analytics? This is in response to this question on the left, because the teachers could have more answers than us to address the questions. So this is an intriguing and sometimes a bit thought-provoking idea I'm interested in. And another area in terms of epistemic agency in the world of AI is the boundary between human and machine is increasingly blurred. So one important aspect I think we need to engage in is to try to map out the design space so that we're not giving up human agency mindlessly or without our notice. And this is people using the term epistemic hijacking. I mentioned that earlier as well, because sometimes we're giving away our control too quickly. And how can we design a system to to reflect those different ideas at different levels. You know, Nancy writes about those multi-level thinking part of that. So I'm inspired by Nancy's idea in those areas as well. How can we keep in mind the visions, pedagogical strategy, designs, and also different more fine-grained tactics as we design the systems, so that we're keeping human agency front and center as we explore new AI capabilities. So we have been exploring that you know, in the group and working with, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on that as well. With that, I just want to wrap up by saying, moving forward, I'm interested in unlocking human potential through developing new learning infrastructure that respect, reinforce, and restore humans' epistemic agency. With that, thank you everyone for your attention. If we have time, I'm happy to answer any questions, but I know our time is maybe short. But thank you all.
Thank you very much for a wonderful seminar. And it touches in so much rich work that has been done for more than, well, it's 1.5 centuries, right? So, 1.5 decades, sorry. So, and what I really like is this part of our actually learning with tools, the right kind of tools should be more difficult learning, right? So in a way, the tool can relieve us on some of the more mundane activities or mental work, so that we can actually hone in on more difficult ones. And I think the epistemic agency is really core to it. There's much that design work, both in terms of the conceptual, pedagogical, and technological design, at least, to do with it. So thank you very much. We have run out of time, but I would like to be able to entertain, say, maybe 2 questions, one on site and one online at most. So anyone want to take the opportunity to ask any questions? Anyone? Okay.
Do you want to make?
Sure. I think it's probably a little bit on to hear us. This is wonderful. I see on a lot of great work, and I definitely appreciate all the sharing and all the thought-provoking ideas here. I have one question. I think a lot of tools that you have created and the experience you have designed are fantastic. Unfortunately, the reality is not as beautiful as we have hoped. Not every learning environment, or sometimes collaborative learning environments, that does not have all these carefully designed experiences to facilitate our students. So in those cases, I think we see a lot of challenges as well. So I guess the question I really want to ask is, do you see these tools or these experiences that we are designing are a way to enable students or learners to build knowledge in a more democratic way in those settings, or as a way to transform our learners so that they could bring these ideas into their next phase of learning growth?
Thanks for the question. Very thoughtful. I think the answer is quick answer is both. Because in the classroom, the hope is they can learn more. But as educators, we hope they take the learning with them. Right? That's kind of line with that our philosophy is learning is a lifelong journey, and the school system, it was created a long time ago with specific needs in mind, and now with the fast changing landscape of society, the needs are different. So the hope is they take some of the mindset, I think the mindset, the way they approach learning, hopefully take that to the next level, or next phase of their life, or to a different setting. Take the experience of collaborating with tools, with the classmates, to their family, to their clubs, or to their participation in society. So that's the hope, is to think about learning as a deeply extensive phenomenon that we can design the learning experience, hopefully that can help broaden. So thank you for the question.
Yeah, I think it's a very nice question, and I think, you know, we can't actually learn how to build knowledge without actually building new knowledge and actually learning through that process. And so it is really interesting. We can't, and I think what is really very significant in the knowledge building sort of approach is to focus on the metacognitive as well as the cognitive. I mean, we can't develop metacognitively without cognitive engagement. Oftentimes we would be just going through the cognitive aspect without the metacognitive. And so I think that the design for the metacognitive aspect of knowledge building is really very impressive. Now, do we have any questions from the online audience? I don't see anything written yet. Well, please, now you can just shout, okay? You can just talk without being without having to type.
Can I stop sharing the screen?
Yeah. So anyone want to talk? Okay. Yes, so in study 3, as I understand it, you prototype 2 models of human AI interaction. Does this mean that the timing and manner in which students work with ChatGPT were completely controlled? If so, how might this control affect the genuine knowledge building processes of the students?
Yeah, thank you for the question. So the timing and manner of their interaction was not perfectly or precisely controlled, but the interaction model that we saw on the slides were, came up with the model to guide the use, and the teacher then introduced the way of using ChatGPT to the students. The student at that time actually didn't have an account. So the teacher shared his account with the students, but the students were able to just use it and then submit a transcript of their conversation with ChatGPT to the teacher. And based on the transcript, you can see different, again, to your question, is the student used ChatGPT under the guidance, but it's not strictly following everything, right? Because sometimes when the AI comes up with a response, the student wants to follow up differently, in a different way, that lead this conversation into different directions, even though there's a higher level guidance for them to follow.
Right. Okay. So yeah, thank you very much, and thank you for the questions, and also thank you for our speaker. So can I thank you. So if anyone still want to ask any questions, I'm sure Bodong will be happy to be contacted through his email. So yeah, so I'm hoping that we can also be having more knowledge building engagement in the future. Thank you.
Thank you.